For someone new, how did POSH become a law?
POSH in India, it didn't begin as a law. Okay, it always start with some history, the failure in the system. So if you have heard about the Vishaka Guideline case,
No.
so it started like a lady, Banwari Devi, who was a grassroots worker, faced sexual assault and misconduct because she wanted to stop child marriage. And उन्होंने बहुत फेस
How
किया.
how long did the story go? मतलब कब का बात है ये?
So it's long back before the POSH implemented. So it went on, she went to the government, politics, nothing helped. फिर जब ये failure हुआ, उसके बाद the law came into existence. The POSH, that's called as a Prevention of Sexual Harassment, which implemented in 2013.
Wow. It's recent.
Recent, yes, I would say recent, but the incident used to happen long back. And that is the reason the implementation of the sexual harassment at workplace has been mandated in India since 2013.
So, what is sexual harassment?
So, in a simpler term, if I say sexual harassment, it is not just about touching, stalking, bad comments, commenting on someone's appearance, following someone, late night messages. There are a lot of things. It is not only about the physical, it is all about mental harassment as well.
So, you said staring. Okay, I used to follow this 4 second rule. I used to believe that, okay, so staring someone for more than 4 seconds is a harassment. This is what I have heard. Okay, so can staring and passing comments, like you said, what type of comments can be considered a harassment? If I say that, okay, you're looking pretty today in the office setup, or if I say the shoes are good, I like the color of your hair, is that an harassment?
If someone is feeling uncomfortable with that comment, then definitely yes, I would say.
Okay. And where do we draw a line of being respectful?
Every company has a certain policies and the boundaries. Okay. When we talk about the boundaries, there is always an intent behind it. Why do we create the policies? We create the policies to maintain that safe environment in the organization. Safe environment means you should always feel respected and safe. Passing on the comments where someone is uncomfortable and repeating those comments again and again will obviously leads to the posh.
Oh.
So you should understand what kind of a comment should be given to someone.
Basically, thinking of a comfort I have with my lady colleague. Earlier, when we were speaking outside, you mentioned that this specific policy is a form of law in our country.
Correct.
Okay. So, how does India compare to other countries on workplace harassment laws?
So in India, we have a specific law. POSH is a specific law for the women. Whereas outside India, there is an anti discrimination law. We specifically follow that law, and it is mandatory for all the organization to implicate this law in the organization.
Okay. How companies are like handling this awareness? Is it is a form of training? I understand they're supposed to be compliant with the policy as it is a
Yeah.
law. How do they handle this?
So handling is different part, whereas having a mandatory committee, having a training, awareness training, sensitization training for the companies is important. These are two different kind of a trainings which we give for the employees and also for the IC committees, where we have a four set of people who belongs to that IC committee, and those trainings are specifically for the IC members, where you can train them if there are any kind of report you come across how to handle. So those are the different kind of a training should be given to the IC members.
Oh, what are the IC members?
Those are the internal committee members within the company, where the 50% of the female should be there in the IC committee. The people if they have come across any kind of a misconduct of harassment, they can go and talk to the IC committee, or they can mail to the IC committee, where IC committee can take action through that.
So, can you give us an example of an incident that happened and how IC committee, what are the steps they followed, or the action they took?
So, for example, if there is some incident in the company where someone has claimed that a misconduct or the misbehavior happened to her, and she mailed it to HR as well as the IC committee. IC committee first get into the history, what has happened. They ask the person to draft each and every detail what has happened. They evidented, they ask the person about the incident, because everything should be documented. Okay, so the document should be given by the complainant, and then the IC committee, they internally have a discussion, they talk to the complainant, they frame it, they understand the nuances, they understand what has happened and why. So there is always a big picture about it. It cannot be stated within a sentence, I would say, but yes, it's a long journey, because listening to the both the parties is important rather than just listening to the one person.
Oh, right. So, what is the end result of this investigation of the
So
process?
end result always comes to a solution where the person was, how much evident it was in terms of filing a report.
You mentioned that POSH is more about intention or impact in reality situation.
Okay. Well, I would say intention always talk about your behavior, right? Intention is a part of a behavior, whereas impact talk about the consequences, right?
Hmm.
If you have a true intent,
Hmm.
right? Like in a formal gathering, there are times we do compliment someone. It truly
Admire.
reflect your intent, right?
Yeah.
But if someone is not comfortable with that, it goes on the other side.
Hmm. And in this, you mentioned about the committee, and I understand that wherever the two parties are involved, there is obviously leadership is also involved.
Correct.
And when the leadership is involved, there is a power dynamics
Correct.
which they can be exercised and can be influenced.
Mm-hmm.
Is that taken into consideration?
Sometimes it does, okay, because I would say most of the people fear of retaliation, image, मेरा image क्या होगा,
Right.
मेरे पे कोई भरोसा करेगा if I go and ask, right? So when people, they don't speak up,
Hmm.
okay, there is always a fear कि what if I go and speak about this, मेरे पे कोई भरोसा करेगा,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So there is always this fear in mind. But POSH, when you speak about POSH, it is always said, if you don't speak, nothing is going to work for you.
Right.
So do speak, right? When we say no tolerance, right? But if you don't speak, nobody is going to help you. Neither the IC committee, neither the people, or any of the organization, person, your peers or colleagues. Try to speak up. There are set committees, awareness is given. And why the awareness is given? So that people understand. Is your workplace safe? So speaking is more important, what I personally feel.
So, as a POSH practitioner, how would you encourage women to speak up? Like if they, like you said, that if there could be trust issues, okay, there could be an idea with an image that could, spoil or the reputation. That if someone is working for a really long period in the organization, and if something happens, God forbid, then what are the tips maybe you can give that will help them, or uh, what should be the point of contact for them?
See, first point of contact is always an HR. Okay. We set the policies for employees. So HR, your first point of contact should be HR, because the HR will definitely help you. That is the reason we called it as a people management,
Right.
right? And second is an IC, Okay. And if your boss, if you're comfortable, you can also loop them in this. But yes, this portion is quite confidential. So going directly to the HR and the IC committee will always help, because such kind of a sensitive topic should be confidential, and I believe most of the companies follow these protocols.
And the tips on speaking up,
Unless and until it's common, like if you don't speak, if you don't try to talk about what is happening wrong, nobody is going to help you. So speaking up always help. अगर आप ही चुप बैठोगे, nothing is going to work. Nobody is going to come and ask or talk in your favor. If something is happening with me, I have the right to come and go, and I have the right to speak up.
but what if I'm not comfortable and I have a confidence she's a colleague and I feel that okay, even if I go out to HR, things may happen against me, and I'm not feeling comfortable, or it's difficult for me to cope up with it.
HR is a point of contact, I would say, whereas the decision making and all the process is been taken care by the IC committee. Okay, so if you're not comfortable with the HR, you can jump it directly to the IC members.
But why do still many employees hesitate to file complaints despite having the formal system of reaching out to HR and the IC committee? Have you experienced this, or someone reach out to you in such cases?
As I told you, the first is retaliation. Okay, about their image. Okay, how people will talk about them. So for females, these are the things which goes into their mind कि क्या सोचेंगे, will they believe. Okay, so all these things stop them taking into any kind of an action. But yes, if not prompt, you have a span of 3 months where you can file your complaints. It is not mandatory कि आज हुआ है incident and you have to file it tomorrow. So
Okay.
you have a span of 3 months. Think
Hmm.
about it. Take your pause, and then you can do the you can file a complaint within 3 months. So you have a specific time to move it forward. But rather than stopping yourself for not taking an action is not going to work.
And is it compulsory to have an IC?
Of
And
course, of course, without IC, it's not going to work.
and how many members are there in IC?
4.
And if the entity is spread across the country, then
Eh, entities, every divisions have different IC, I would say IC committees. So it depend on the companies. As also, if the company has a different divisions, so every divisions has a different set of IC committees.
okay. And is it the physical contact necessary for harassment?
I said
Yeah.
it's not only physical, right?
And can messages or WhatsApp chats be considered as harassment, and can they be used as evidence?
Of course, yes. When you work for a specific time, right? We have a 9 to 5 job or whatever the time you work for. But beyond that, if someone keeps on messaging you
Hmm.
unnecessary, if it's something related to work, we can understand. But it goes beyond when someone is not comfortable and repetitive doing the same messages and asking for the follow ups, it should be considered. And if someone is saying that we can get in touch with you tomorrow, or we can talk on this topic tomorrow, and why you cannot just simply keep on messaging someone or bothering someone at late night.
Yeah.
You have 9 to 5 hours of time during your work hours. We can talk about the office's work.
And what if both people were friendly with each other earlier?
Good question. So basically, it does happen. Friendly nature. It always talk about intent, right? We were friends earlier, but now we are not. And if someone is not comfortable with that kind of a nature or the friendliness,
Hmm.
they might get into some another kind of an action.
And what if after passing a comment, if I say that, oh, I was just joking?
This is a usual comment, I would say. I was just joking because आप उस चीज से backstep कर रहे हो.
Yeah,
I was
I'm defending myself.
right. So there is always an intent. Why do you say such statements? We have a set culture, okay? So in office premises also you should understand what your office protocols are, okay? So just you cannot comment on anyone just casually. There must be some intent behind it, right? And अगर फिर सामने वाला आपको स्टॉप करता है और डिफेंड करता है एंड देन आफ्टर यू से आई वाज जस्ट जोकिंग, so it doesn't sink it.
Right. Yeah. This is not usually your insecurities come out as a comment or a joke. Maybe that could be the thing. Or is it like just a one time behavior or it has to be recurring in nature?
One time behavior in
Maybe I texted you once, late midnight, it's fine. Or it has to be like many nights I'm sending you late night text. Or is it one time or like multiple
if someone is not comfortable, it's not comfortable, that's it, it's no. Then you should understand that there are certain boundaries you have to set. If someone is not comfortable, stop messaging, because you already have that 8 hours of shift during your work time.
What if the earlier when we were discussing about the secondment part where an individual from India goes outside some other country, some other part of office, and there if something happens, okay, so and the incident happened outside the office, so how
Okay.
how is it
So there are certain cases, I would say, because during the international events, I would say, the cases happens. The person is from India and the foreign delegates who come for an event. There is a different law, like India has a different law, where people from the India, they try to connect with the foreign people or the IC committee. They try to gather the evidences, then they try to talk to the person, and the same applies to the IC members of the same company from the India. So it is always a two-way communication will happen. They try to gather the information from both the parties, though it is from India or is from the foreign person, the one who has attended. Having the evidences is important,
So-
because sometimes the verbal evidence cannot be treated as the proof.
right?
So a documentation in any kind of an evidence for an evidence is important.
So is it safe to say that the investigation process is pretty standardized across the global IC committees?
Correct.
So my question is, can I complain against my boss?
An employee is an employee, can be your boss, can be your colleague, can be your peer, anyone. POSH is for everyone.
What if I'm a woman and I just recently had an incident which is making me really uncomfortable, and I'm not sure whether I need to file an harassment or not because my knowledge is limited. What do I do?
It is not compulsion to file a complaint. At that point of time, you have a span of 3 months to file a complaint. So, as per the law, you have 3 months of time to file a complaint. So, it's all depends. You have a span of 3 months. You can file a complaint within 3 months, taking the help of your colleague as well.
And what protect me as a man?
Okay. So, when we talk about POSH,
What if the roles reverse?
okay, the POSH is specifically for women as per the law. But when a company form a policies, there is always a gender neutral policy for all the employees. So it doesn't specify anyone, it's for all the employees working in an organization. So when you have a gender neutral policy, it covers everyone.
I've read about some statistics that due to fear, stigma, or career impact, more than 70 to 90% of workplace harassment cases go unreported. What are your thoughts on that?
There is a legal mandate, but company follow as a checklist. So most of the company, they just complete this legal formality as a checklist. Some of the companies, they do follow, they make sure the trainings are happening, awareness sessions are happening, and at the end they file a complaint. But it is not only about filing a complaint or having a training. Posh talk about the safest place where you are working, where when you talk about posh culture and the compliance, your culture talks about everything. Compliance, it's meant for the organization to apply in the companies for employees, but the culture is where the employees feel safe and they speak about it. That is the true culture of your organization. So having said that, even if you have a policies in the place, culture should be in such a form that people should feel comfortable speaking of anything happening within the office premises. So having a strong culture talks everything about your organization.
So most people think POSH is about rules, but what I understand, it's really about awareness, intent, and everyday behavior. Pratibha, this has been an amazing, insightful episode. What if I ask you, as a takeaway, that you have to give one practical mindset shift for employees today? What would help create a safer and more respectful workplace for everyone?
A respectful workplace speaks everything. It is not only about your policy, it is how your environment, the culture of the company. If you see in today's generation, people don't just go for the salary, they want better workplace, they want a better job, they want a better boss, everything. It is not only about their salary. So where your culture is also important, your the behavioral aspect is also important. So posh, it is not just a legal mandate. Make sure every company follow this protocol and try to execute and implement this. If you see SMEs, they just follow this as a checklist, but it's not truly done as per the compliance as a mandate.
Right.
So following these protocols are very important so that you are creating the safer workplace for the organization, for the people.
Right. And this is for our listeners. If they have to find you, where can they reach out to you?
So you can reach out to me on Instagram, LinkedIn. Just type Pratibha Pawar as a POSH practitioner or a trainer, and also as an OD practitioner.